Hello everybody, my name is Jonathan and today I will be doing a run through of the EV3 programming environment. So now to start off, the first thing you will want to do usually would be to open a project. Makes sense, right? So you go up here, here you've got like file menu, where you can say like new project, open project, all that good stuff. You can also access those things over here in the file thing. And you can say open project, open, or new project, etc. But the easiest way to do it, in my opinion, is just to go up here to this little plus button that says add project. Click it, and there you go. You've got a new project. It's as simple as that. So once you have your new project, you see that a new bar opens up under here that says program. So your project's like a file, and it holds a bunch of programs. You don't make like 1,000 billion projects and each one has one program. That's sort of a waste. But as you can see here, they're just named project and program, which is just the default. But of course, you'd want to change that. And how you change that is you would save it. So if I go up to File and I say Save Project, I can name it. So I'm gonna name it intro class. I apologize, I'm a very slow typer. So I'm going to say save. So intro class.ev3. Double click on program. Oopsies. Double click, and then you can name it. I'm going to name it vid1. Alright, and then you click enter so that it'll stay that way. When I clicked enter, you might have noticed this little symbol thing came up by the intro class. That just means that you've made changes that haven't been saved. So if you've been working for a while and you look at this little symbol, it's just a little reminder that you might want to save your program just in case, which is always a good thing. So if you look over here, we have the file menu as I showed you before, but we also have edit, just some very basic stuff, and then you got tools and help, which I'm not really gonna go over too much, but it's just similar to any, like, if you were like used Microsoft Word or anything like that. So if you go over here to your project bar, you made this program, but you can or project, sorry, excuse me. You can add as many projects as you would like onto here, and you can also just travel through them by clicking. You can also go back to the lobby menu and you'll still have this open, which is a very useful thing, and it's basically the same with the program thing too, and so you can make as many programs as you would like to, but you can also always go back to your original program, or there's also this thing, it's project properties. This is meant for importing images, programs, all sorts of things, but I'm not really going to get into that very much. Another thing I'm not really going to get into much, which is similar to the project properties, is the content editor, which is this box thing that is shown right here. So to close it out, I'm just going to say close content editor. And there you go. So you're given this big white open space to put in your program. So now I'm going to show you this, which is sort of like your handy dandy toolbar with all your little buttons that are very good. So I'm going to start right here, with the select and pan mode. The select mode is the mode you would usually use where you can actually edit your program. I'm going to bring this very useful block, the move tank block, one of my favorites, in here to show you. So I use the select mode to bring that over here, and I can change all these little things as I would please, and I can drag them around, and I can also, as it says, select certain parts of my program. So then moving on to the other mode, which is the pan mode. This is just meant to basically scroll around your screen, which is useful for when you have really, really long programs that are hard to see. You can just scroll around to get to the part that you would like. They're both useful. I find myself to be mostly in the select mode, but the pan mode is very useful when you have really long programs. Now, another block here is the, button, sorry, not block, is the comment block. This is an extremely useful block because when you have really long programs, this block will be your friend. Because it gets very repetitive and it's a lot of these same patterns over and over again. And you can't really, it's hard to know where you are in your program. So if you add little comments throughout that just say this is when the robot turns left or right, it'll be easier to find where things are. So just click there and you can add your handy dandy little comment. So I'm going to say start, because this is the start block, so I know that that's where I start. So comments are always very useful little things. Then moving on over here, we have the Save Project button, which is a very fast way to just quickly save your project. You might have seen, the little symbol went away when I clicked Save. Another thing we've got right here is the Undo, Redo buttons. You obviously know what those do. Undo, redo, just like any old undo, redo. So now we have the zoom out and zoom in as our sort of last things. And it just does what you think it does. You zoom out, you zoom in, and you reset zoom just takes you back to the default. So, when you have a really long program, I guess you probably prefer to zoom out, but when you have a really small program, you zoom in just a bit, probably, just so that it's not inconvenient. So that's basically it for the toolbar. Alright, so now we'll be moving on to the action menu. This is where you gather all of your blocks for the program and you put them down, and it's just the building blocks of your program. So the first one here is the action section, which is the green tab. There are a few blocks in here. This is mostly based off of motors. The first 4 here are all motors. And then we have these other things like sound that will make your robot make certain sounds that can be triggered by certain things. And display, it just makes pictures appear on the screen of the robot. But as I said, the first 4 here are all based off of motors. The first one is the medium motor, which is the smaller one, and the next 3 motors are all based off of the bigger motors. My personal favorite out of pretty much all of the blocks, I suppose, would be the move tank block, because I find it very convenient to use. But that's just my opinion. We've also got on the end brick status light, which just makes different colored light appear from the cracks between the buttons on the brick. Now, moving on to the next tab, it's called the flow control. It's the orange tab. This is a very useful section. It includes many blocks that will make your life easier. The first one you see here is the start block, which is also what you see right up here. And that's because the start block is the default. So whenever you make a new program, it'll appear with the start button. Because for your program to do anything, it has to be attached to a start block. So obviously the start block is very useful. It also starts your program. If you just click this button, if your robot is connected to the computer, you can run your program from the computer, which is nice. Next to the start block, we have the wait block, which simply makes your robot wait. You can make it wait for a certain amount of time, but you can also make your robot wait until something happens. Like, let's say the color sensor senses red. The robot will, stop because it's been waiting until that robot goes over the red. So next here we got a very useful block, which I'm going to put up here so that it's easier to see for all of you guys. This is the loop block. So, like, when you have a square, you have to put basically forward turn, forward turn, forward turn, forward turn. It's just a forward turn 4 times. So if you put the forward turn in here and you set it to count and 4, then you'll be set to go and you have yourself a square. I'm going to skip a block here to the next block because it goes with the loop block and it's the loop interrupt. So this is for if the loop is set to unlimited, the program that's in here will go an unlimited amount of times. But with this loop interrupt, you can make it so that if it senses a certain thing or if something happens, it'll stop or do something else. So the loop interrupt is a very useful thing that goes with the loop block. So I'm going to take these out. Oopsies. I'll take these out and I'll move on to this one, which is the one I skipped. And this is way easier to see when you have it out. So I'll pull that out. As you can see, it's a very thick one. This block is the switch block. I've got 2 little things over here to help me demonstrate this block because it's sort of a little bit harder of a concept to understand. So this is, I think the simplest way to put it would be to say that it's an if-then statement, which is true. It's basically saying if this happens, then it'll do this, but if not, this will happen. So I have 2 move tank blocks. I've set 1 to stop move tank and 1 to continue, so on and off. So right here it is currently set to the touch sensor. So if this touch sensor is pushed, then the brakes will go on. The motor will stop. But if it doesn't, then it'll go with the X option as opposed to the check, and it will just continue on going. That's it for the first 2. Now we'll be getting to some more quite interesting blocks. Alrighty, so now we'll be moving on to the next 4 slots, starting off with the yellow slot, which is the sensor tab. So right here we have an assortment of all of the sensors. There are many blocks in this section, and this allows us to tamper with all of our sensors within the program. So we have many sensors such as the color sensor, which is useful for sensing colors and light intensity, the gyro sensor, which senses the angle of your robot, and several other useful sensors, all of which you can change and tamper with when you're in the sensor tab. Now, the next one, the red tab, this is the data operations tab. So in this, it looks like a more random assortment of blocks, but in data operations, sometimes you will need to keep track of values or make calculations. So this is basically saying, like, if I have to do a bunch of calculations, I can make my robot do it all for me rather than me doing it myself. And so we've got some useful things like the variable block, the constant block, and some other useful blocks. I personally like the math block a lot, so if I take this out here to show you. So obviously we can put in our variables here. We could even attach I'll add a constant. With this, you can use data wires and attach it to one of these, and this will be one variable. And we can say add, subtract, I'll go multiply, and multiply it by something, anything you want. And so that's basically making your robot do the work for you rather than yourself, which is always a very useful thing. I accidentally got rid of that block, but there was something else I wanted to show you within the math block, and it's not just the basic, divide, multiply, subtract, add. You also can do advanced, and you can do algebraic equations. So as you can see up here, you can change it and do whatever you would please. And there's a lot of different sections. I'm not an expert at this, but there are definitely some useful things within the data operations block menu. So the next one, which is this blue tab right here, as the name implies, it's an advanced topic. By the way, it's called advanced if you didn't know. But a brief overview of all of this is it's a way to tamper with your files, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and even comments. So there are some useful blocks in here, but it's an advanced topic, and I'm just not going to cover it very much today. So now, moving on to the very last but not least, my blocks. Okay, now there's nothing there currently, and that is because you have to make your own my blocks. That's the trick. So my blocks, they help you simplify your programs by letting you turn sections of your own programs into reusable blocks. For example, the move block would move our robot a certain number of inches. You just say 5 inches. You wouldn't have to calculate okay, how many wheel rotations equals an inch, and you'd have to multiply that every single time. My blocks typically are using these data operations blocks, which are these blocks that are doing the equations for you. Another example would be similar to the move. It would be the turn block, and that would turn your robot a certain number of degrees. Again, so you wouldn't have to calculate that every single time you wanted to turn a certain number of degrees. Alrighty, so now that we have gone over all of these bricks, or blocks, excuse me, now I'll be showing you this right here. So I'll click this little arrow to expand. You can also collapse. The default, I believe, is this open. But currently, if you see these three sides here, you don't see very much. It's sort of bland. That's because this block right here, as you can see if you read this, there's no brick connected. This is the connection between your brick and the computer. And if you didn't know, the brick is your robot. So behind the scenes here, I am connecting the robot to the computer, and you heard that ding-a-ling sound. That means it's connected. So as you can see, everything changed. And now I can go over it with you guys. So starting off here, you have the name, the brick name. Currently it's EV3. That's going to be the default. So if you have a new brick, it'll be named EV3. And you can go in and you can change it, and you just click enter and you can have a new name. Then next to it here, you have the battery level of your robot. So that's a good way to tell, if you have low battery, you're going to want to charge it. This thing right here, firmware, this is the software that makes your robot work the way it does. And if you have a very old version, you'd want to get a newer version so that everything runs smoothly. It's a bit complicated to explain for me because I'm not an expert at this. But if you know what this is and you know what this does, then good for you. I'm not an expert. So next thing we have is connection type. Currently it's USB because that just means that my robot, your robot and my robot are connected with an actual physical wire. But you see here this wrench, it's open wireless setup. If you click here, you can change it from USB to Wi-Fi. But to do that, you would need a Wi-Fi adapter. It's a little USB like a flash drive looking thing. It's a $25 attachment to get, but it's very useful. It'll make your life easier. But yeah, Wi-Fi adapters are definitely a useful tool that I like a lot because you don't have to always bring your robot and plug it in and unplug it every single time you want to make a change. So, if you have a Wi-Fi adapter, you click here and you can choose your Wi-Fi station, and it's a very useful attachment, as I said. So here you have the memory bar, which shows how much memory you have, and here a button usually people don't think twice about, but it's a very, very useful button, is Open Memory Browser. So this is your brick memory. So if I go in here, you see the bar that you also see down here. But here, I've been working for this robot for not very long, but as you can see, the memory is not even close to full. So, there's a lot of space in here, so you shouldn't be too worried about that. And here you have all of your memories, all of your, your projects, your programs, and everything. And once you've had a robot for a while, this gets very cluttered and there's tons of junk everywhere. And so you'd want to, delete some of that or download it if you'd like to. So this is just a way to access all of your history. So if I go into intro class, this is what I'm currently in. And if I delete this, it's still on my computer, but it'll be erased from the memory of my robot. So I'll click delete. As you can see, these options popped up in a more, they're more bold now. These still are faded, but there are other things that you need to do to use this properly, but I'm not going to fully go over that. But as you can see here, you have the delete button. Click that, and boom, it's deleted. So, you'd want to look in there because often people can make multiple copies of the same program on accident, and lots of things can happen where there's just a lot of things you don't need, and it's just useless to have all that extra stuff. So every once in a while you'd want to hop in here and clean up your memory so that it's not as cluttered. So the next tab here is one that I really like. It's very interesting. It's the port view. A port is a socket, and each attachment to your robot is attached to the brick with a wire. So, and there are multiple sockets so that you can have multiple sensors and things attached to your robot, and each socket or port is labeled with a different number and or letter. So here, as you can see, I have a few things attached. I have the 2 motors. I've got the 2 color sensors and a touch sensor. So if I reach for the touch sensor here, I'll press it, and if you're watching the touch sensor, you'll see that it's turning from 0 to the 1 whenever I press it. So this basically means you get active feedback from there, or from the robot in here. So you can see all the numbers and things. And here, even the color sensors have different numbers because I put the one color sensor under a red napkin and the other one under a white or a blank sheet of paper. So you're getting different inputs from the color sensors. And you also even get numbers from your motor. So if I turn the robot here, it's not turning because I have all this stuff down here. If I take those out, you're seeing changes in the motor degrees. That's because I'm turning them, and you're getting active feedback. So these are all very useful features. And another thing it's very useful for is your robot needs to recognize which ports they are in, or it won't recognize that they're there at all. So up here in the move tank block, it's the 2 motors. They're both attached to B and C. That's the default, I believe. It'll usually be in B and C. But let's say there were in A and D. You could just hop in here, change it A, change it to D. And you need to do that, otherwise it just won't work. So obviously, it's a very useful thing because it's just an easy way. You can hop in here, see where everything's connected, and it's just very convenient. So the next or last slot is available bricks. This just shows all of the bricks that you have connected, what their names are, and how they're connected. Usually, you'll only have one robot attached to your, connected to your computer, but you may just so happen to have multiple robots, and you would need to keep track, and you can keep track through here. There are some other buttons here, but I'm not really going to go over those in detail this time. Then, I'll go back to the front. Then the very last thing, it's this little sliver right here that you see. And even when you close this, you still have this. Just a little thing I wanted to show you. But yeah, here it's very useful. This button is download program. So if I wanted to download this program, just click here. Heard the ding-a-ling again. That means the program's downloaded. You can say download and run. I wouldn't want to do that because it has a wire. There's a wire attached to the robot, and it's on a table. So if I downloaded it and ran the program, it would just move forward and bump into my computer. So that wouldn't be good. But if you have a Wi-Fi connection, you could do that, because if it was on the floor, it wouldn't be attached to anything, and you could download the program and the program would run. So that's part of the reason Wi-Fi connections are so incredibly useful. And here, similar to the last one, it's run selected. So you select a certain part like this, and it'll download that particular part and run it. Just that part, just the part that you selected. So I think that is just about it for today. But stay tuned for more tutorials. I hope you enjoyed this video and have a great day.